All right, so inform me, what's going on with Star Wars?
Okay, well,
Hold on, let me get the chill music back. I need my
Star Wars music.
Oh, I don't want to get DMCA'd.
Oh, that's true.
That'll kick our asses way off the internet.
Yeah. So, he totally did look like the lead singer for Tesla. Not like he didn't look like it, but the hair was very Def Leppard.
What year was this?
It was about 2009 or 2010. It was a while back. I mean, obviously the resort is still going strong, but you know. Anyway, so I'm sure you've been somewhat familiar, maybe, with the amount of filmmakers that have been formally announced to be working on Star Wars projects, and then have those projects completely evaporate.
You know, when I was on that panel with Movie Madness, Mad Max at Movie Madness, go follow his channel. That was a big topic of the conversation, was about all of that. I had mentioned Lord and Miller with the Solo story, and how that, I mean, it happened a lot in the past, even with Colin Trevorrow. And it's continuing to happen with respects to the things that they've announced, you know, with Dan and Dave and all that other sort of stuff. So yeah, it is a concerning trend.
Well, it just happened again.
Oh.
So, remember the Patty Jenkins thing that they announced?
Oh, yes. And that was what we talked about, too. We talked about how Patty Jenkins was it got Rogue Squadron.
Yeah, and it was postponed. So, they had Disney Plus Day a few days ago.
Yes.
I guess last Friday. And your regular Star Wars leakers, your Star Wars news nets, your, Eckert's Ladder, people that are scoops and are not completely unreliable, like your Mike Zeros and stuff. Those guys all said that we would be getting like trailers possibly for Obi-Wan, trailers and announcements and a bunch of stuff. And they didn't get any of that.
Yeah.
There
was a little bit of an Obi-Wan thing, but it wasn't a trailer.
Well, the thing is it leaked the day before, and the people were told, like, their sources were like, no, that's not the trailer. Like, people were like, we've seen the trailer. It's definitely a trailer cut. We're going to see it. And so people, like a lot of YouTube, leakers and, scoopers announced that all this shit was going to happen. Of course, none of it happened. They just showed the Obi-Wan thing that was leaked the day before. And then they showed, like, this Boba Fett documentary that's just about the history of Boba Fett. That was on Disney Plus. And that was it. Nothing else. And people were just like, what the fuck? And a lot of the scoopers, the sources and stuff are like, we don't know what happened. It was like some last minute decision at Lucasfilm to just not show any of this stuff. We don't know if they're waiting until D23 or if they're waiting until the Investor Day call. We don't know why they didn't show this shit. I guess D23 is later this month, and then the Investor Day call is in December. But it was announced either right around then or on that day that the Patty Jenkins movie had been postponed in kind of...
Wait, she was doing a movie? I thought she was... Oh, wait, it was Rogue Squadron, a movie? I thought it was a Disney Plus show. Okay, that was the movie. Okay, continue.
And it was postponed because of scheduling. Well, that's no one really... I don't think anyone bought that for sure, And then now the story's breaking that they just can't agree on a script. Like, she... because I guess she's got a fairly decent working relationship with Warner Brothers, she's still fairly hot, even though... People weren't that stoked about Wonder Woman 84. Yeah. People were bummed out about that. And I guess, it was people were, and supposedly Ryan Johnson's thing is off too. I don't know what the source is on that, but
okay.
Patty Jenkins supposedly was just like, they were micromanaging the script, but I couldn't come on a script, and she was just like, I'm tired of dicking around. That's what they actually said, and she was just like, I'm out. I'm not fucking around with this. I got way too much stuff to be doing, to be dicking around with you guys. And so she bolted. And that's got everyone just like, what the fuck? And a lot of people that are, of course, a huge contingency of the Star Wars like YouTube fandom, the regular fandom that don't follow this shit every day, don't give a fuck. But a whole bunch of the YouTube fandom hate Kathleen Kennedy.
Well, yeah, there is a deep hatred and resentment of Kathleen Kennedy in general.
Yeah. And so they, this was just like more like, what the fuck? Turning over tables and shit. And then they announced today, I guess, that Kathleen Kennedy's contract was just extended another 3 more years. And that even blew people's more minds. So people were just like, Star Wars is just completely fucked. It's just, Lucasfilm is just in disarray. And you've got a lot of even fairly moderate Star Wars YouTubers who aren't like on the, who don't currently drink at the trough of Kathleen Kennedy haterade that are basically just like, man, maybe she needs to go, because what the fuck, you know what I mean?
Yeah, okay, so like, I'm not a Kathleen Kennedy hater.
No, I'm not either. I'm pretty agnostic.
Generally because I just don't really care too much about the back office ongoings in the Star Wars realm.
I don't care about back office goings generally anywhere. I just like, in the 80s, we didn't know any of this shit. We just like went and saw the movies and liked them or not. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, we didn't know that Eric Stoltz had shot like half of Back to the Future until like the DVD Blu-ray came out in 2007. You know what I mean?
Right. But I will say that like it's impossible if you do pay attention to that sort of stuff.
Yeah, totally.
It's impossible to like look past the pretty much almost every project outside of The Mandalorian experiences a tremendous amount of hiccups and roadblocks, if not outright cancellations with Star Wars pretty much ever since The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Which is the second one they've worked with.
It's actually not true. It's before The Last Jedi. Because Rogue One.
Well, that's what I meant.
Was completely.
Rogue One also. Oh, you meant before. Wait, Rogue One came out before.
Yeah,
Last Jedi? You're right.
It came out before The Last Jedi.
Okay, so I guess Rogue One.
The Last Jedi actually went pretty smoothly until it came out. You know what I mean? And it was very divisive. But as far as the production, it went smoothly. But Rogue One's production did not go smoothly at all.
Yeah.
They basically brought in Tony Gilroy to completely like reshoot a bunch of stuff and re-edit the movie and fix the movie. To do a bunch of shit to the script.
Yeah.
And then like
for some reason I thought that was after The Last Jedi.
No, it was before. And the director, not Tony Gilroy, but the other guy who was on it, what's his name is escaping me right now. It's the music that's throwing me off. I want to say his name is Lars, but it's not. It's Gareth
Edwards. Yeah.
Gareth Edwards played ball. You know what I mean? He played ball and didn't like get his. Just played ball and ended up getting to be on the movie. You know what I mean? Be the director for the movie. And then, but when they're making the Cassian Andor series for Disney Plus, which is about that character from Rogue One, they didn't bring back Gareth Edwards to direct it. They brought back Tony Gilroy. You know what I mean? Then after that, Solo, which hilariously had the nuts and bolts for Solo had gotten started before Lucasfilm was even sold. Like Lawrence Kasdan was originally, I think, consulted on possibly writing a Solo movie, while George Lucas still. Was the thing that was something that they wanted to do, and people always said, like, why the hell did they write? Why the hell did they make a Han Solo? No one wanted that movie anyway. It's like, well, that was one of the movies that they were going to make, going back to before they sold it to. People were like, oh, it's just a Disney cash grab. It's like, actually, this is a Lucasfilm cash grab that was in the works before. But Lord and Miller, that thing melted down, and then they made Rise of Skywalker. But
that was supposed to be Colin Trevorrow, though.
It was, and they
booted him.
his ass. You know what I mean?
I still don't know why. Like I don't. It couldn't have been because of Book of Henry.
I think it was probably a little bit. I think that like Book of Henry came out and was bad, and people hated it, and they're like, it's
a hilarious movie. You have to watch
your
it.
credibility, I think, probably to be like, no, this is the way it needs to be. I've done all this good work. Probably goes down if your last film was a fucking flop that people didn't like, and maybe that's probably what caught Patty Jenkins. Even though Wonder Woman 84, I mean, maybe it did well from a streaming. I mean, because the way it came out,
it's hard to tell, but
critically, it was not.
It was a bad movie.
It was not considered anywhere near as good as Wonder Woman. The first Wonder Woman, and Patty Jenkins, I found out, really didn't develop the first Wonder Woman. She directed it, but she was brought in late in the game, supposedly. Which we could look that up.
So just it seems like Wonder Woman. She accepted an offer to direct it in 2015, based on a screenplay by Alan Heinberg and a story co-written by Heinberg, Zack Snyder, and Jason Fuchs. or Fox. It could be Fox. It could be Futches. I've always tripped up on that surname because it seems like it should be Fox, but that seems sketch. Anyways, so it seems like the screenplay was written and developed by these three: Zack Snyder, Jason Fuchs or whatever, and Alan Heinberg. And she was brought on 2015 to direct it. So, I mean, she's as early as you can get on it for a script that was developed by somebody else. It seems like she was on it. I don't think any other director had a hand in it in that regard.
Yeah, maybe it was just the writing of it that she didn't write that movie.
Yeah, she didn't write it. She didn't So as far as like the development of it, like she was basically brought in to shoot, to direct what had already been written and spec'd out and whatnot by.
Was she the first person offered to direct it?
Looks like it. Well, let me see.
Yeah, no, Michelle
okay,
McLaurin.
Here it is. Michelle McLaurin. Yeah, was the
yeah, she quit the product due to creative differences. So I guess I had heard that it was originally she was on it for a little bit and they had another script.
I just don't know how much she may have worked on it though.
I don't know, but I'm just like, if you're looking at the movies, you know what I'm saying? It's like you've got this movie that had a different director in the beginning and different screenwriters, and it came out and people really liked it, but Patty Jenkins definitely directed it.
Yeah.
And then you've got a movie where she was completely from soup to nuts, the creative force, and it didn't do as well. You know, maybe that possibly eroded some of her ability to make demands creatively at Lucasfilm. I have no idea. I'm just wildly speculating, and I probably
she did do the story with Jeff Johns for Wonder Woman 84. The screenplay also. So she definitely had a much heavier hand in the second movie.
Yeah, and that's just what I had heard, through people talking. So maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know.
But didn't they announce the Patty Jenkins thing before Wonder Woman 84 came out?
No, they did. They did. Well, they did probably. Yeah, I mean they had agreed to, but the same thing was Colin Trevorrow. You know what I'm saying? It's like they'd agreed to have him on when he was.
I mean, after I meant.
Oh no.
Squadron. I could have sworn that they.
I want to say that like before they officially announced it, they, but I could be wrong about that.
We got it. We do our I dotting and T crossing here on the Nerdcast.
We try to.
We got to make sure our information is up to date. Rogue Squadron during Disney Investor 2020. Patty Jenkins was announced to develop the film. Okay, so was that before? Okay.
Well, you figure that was when it was announced. So they're negotiating it before that. You know what I mean? And granted, they. And the thing is, I'm not saying that they wouldn't. They would be like, no, you're not doing it based on Wonder Woman 84 not doing great. But my point is when it comes to putting your foot down about some creative decision against people at Lucasfilm, the critical acclaim of the last movie that you wrote and directed probably might come into play to your credibility. Maybe. I don't know. But you never know how these things work.
Oh, geez. Okay, so that was just before. That was announced December 10th of 2020 at Disney's thing then. Had Wonder Woman 84 came out December 25th. So like a week later.
So that's the thing. It's like, she starts working on it maybe, and, they start to disagree. Maybe she's like, well, I think it needs to be like this. And they're like, yeah, but, let's be honest. The last movie you did, didn't do that great with fans, and we think that blah, blah. And I can see, like, a little bit of that and be like, you know what, I'm fucking done. I'm out.
So,
you know what I mean?
Let me do this real quick.
But I'm utterly, completely speculating out of my
all
ass,
speculation.
Whole cloth, not worth anything whatsoever.
Following the news that Patty Jenkins' Star Wars movie has been delayed, definitely reports have surfaced that the move was made due to creative differences between the director and Lucasfilms. Hold on, I must have missed some words there, but whatever. We know what we're talking about. Former THR editor and noted insider Matthew Baloney reports...
Baloney!
Baloney. Oh, what a load of baloney!
Exactly. His website is notbaloney.com.
Not baloney.
All the news that's actually not baloney. It is baloney, but it's not baloney.
Reports that issues between Jenkins and the studio caused the film to be taken off Lucasfilm's production schedule. Specifically, Baloney reports that the issues have revolved around the film's script, stating that Jenkins and studio executives, including Senior VP Michelle Rejwan, couldn't agree on how to move forward. Baloney states that this is a, quote, laughably recurring problem at Lucasfilm. According to the article, a number of agents have previously reported that top filmmakers are often keen to sign on for a movie within the franchise, but find themselves hampered by issues of micromanagement and plot point by committee processes. Baloney cites that similar experiences were held by Game of Thrones showrunners David Benioff and Dan Weiss, who, quote, bailed on creating a new Star Wars trilogy, as well as Rian Johnson, whose own trilogy was also shelved.
I don't know what their sourcing on that is, but
on Rian Johnson's, that's news to me.
Not even that long ago, he was asked on Twitter if it was still on, and he was like, "Yep, still on." That was like 3 or 4 months ago, but.
Well, I mean, we can check that out in a second.
I mean, IGN is the source of that story. I want to say, and I want to say they're quoting that Baloney guy. So I mean, maybe he knows something.
Rogue Squadron might not be the only Star Wars movie in trouble due to creative differences. Disney Plus Day might have led THR reported last week that the delay came down to Jenkins' whatever. But follow-up report on THR editor, because this is also by Matt Baloney, writing for Puck News, asserts there are bigger problems behind the scenes than Jenkins' packed schedule. Yes, okay, so this is also... Where's the Rian Johnson thing? That's what I came here for. It's unclear if Jenkins had left the project altogether at this time, but Lucasfilm is no stranger to high-profile breakups with A-list filmmakers. Most famously, the pair parted ways with Phil Lord and Chris Miller while they were filming Solo, and brought in Ron Howard for his movie, Colin Trevorrow, Red Skywalker. Okay. Most recently, it also happened to Rian Johnson, reveals Baloney, whose own planned trilogy was shelved. The trilogy that was announced in 2017 ahead of the release of The Last Jedi has been the subject of heavy speculation over the past few years, but Lucasfilms has said very little about the project since the original announcement. Despite whispers about the movie being shelved, Johnson had reassured fans several times the trilogy is still in development, and that's the tweet that you're talking about, where he says, "No, it isn't true. I'm still working on the trilogy. With all due respect to the movie bros, who I'm sure are lovely, kind bros with good fraternal intentions." Okay, so when was that? February of 2019.
He's more recently than that said that he's still working.
At the time, Johnson spoke more in depth about his approach to developing the Star Wars trilogy that captured the spirit of Jordan's Observer. Okay, let's see. But the rumors of Johnson's exit have continued. Earlier this year, Johnson confirmed to author Sarah Wilson in an interview that he was still working on the new Star Wars.
Maybe this is what I'm thinking.
I'm just going, and this is Sarah Wilson tweeting February from this year. I'm just going to post this now because I can see that I'm going to get a lot of requests. Yes, Ryan's Star Wars trilogy is still on. No dates or timelines because he has other projects going on, but it is happening. That's all I know about it. Whether these movies end up happening or not, Johnson is a bit busy at the moment with his Knives Out sequel for Netflix. The second movie is currently in production. That's a big one, too. It's worth noting that Kennedy didn't mention Johnson's trilogy during last year's Disney Investors Day, where Rogue Squadron was first announced. During the broadcast, Kennedy also teased the mystery Star Wars movie from Taika Waititi, which is still in the early development stage. Okay, so that's still a little mysterious then about the status of Rian Johnson.
Yeah, they don't seem to have great sourcing. That's why I was curious.
Yeah, I mean, this Baloney dude, I guess, if he's a credible person, then maybe he has a source that he's not willing to, like, you know.
Yeah, I mean...
But, I mean, we're just going off of this one dude's word, really.
Anyway.
Star Wars film was originally announced. That's 2020. Okay, so
it would be so interesting just to, like, you know, to talk to somebody on the inside and just hear what the fucking nuts and bolts of this shit actually are.
What's actually going on?
What are the plot points that they're demanding? I want to know the nuts and bolts. You know what I mean?
You want to know the plot points?
Yeah, I want to.
You're never going to get that. Not until like years after it's released.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, what was it about? Like, I've heard different things about Lord and Miller's stuff that like the shit didn't edit together, and there was a ton of improvising.
Well, they wanted it to be more of like a comedy, is what I heard. Is they wanted Solo to be more of like a comedy, and like there was a lot more improvising, and I think that it was kind of like a vibe difference more than anything I got from them. Yeah, I heard that like that some of the shit they were having him do was crazy goofy and like almost like Ace Ventura. That's what someone said, you know. And then people, and then
and supposedly because of they weren't getting a lot of coverage because they were rolling so much footage for like improvisation and stuff, and so Kathleen Kennedy was looking at the dailies and looking at some edits together, and it wouldn't edit together very well. And she's like, I don't think these guys have made a movie like this. Isn't like, this is like 22 Jump Street. She's like, this is a major action movie with tons of special effects shots and a ton of shit, and we've got to have better coverage than this. It's got to, we got to have more options.
Which is funny because they left Solo and then won an Oscar for Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, well, there's no live action shit.
No, there isn't, but I mean, it's an action movie for certain.
Well, yeah, well, my point is that in that scenario, you don't have to rebuild the set.
Right, you don't have to rebuild. You don't have to
boot the computer back up and replace your camera.
Yeah, for certain.
But
I mean, the credibility is more on their side with their track record than it is with.
Well, at this point, although I don't know. I mean, one thing I'll say about Kathleen Kennedy is she's produced a lot of fucking huge movies. I mean, like every huge movie of the '80s almost. Like all the Indiana Jones movies, E.T., and fucking a ton of shit.
Yeah.
Like every major Goonies, just a fucking ton of shit. Every classic movie that everyone loves, she produced it.
It's a different era. I wonder if she hasn't caught up with that yet.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, to me, the Lord Miller thing, I can see that. I mean, here's my issue. It's like if it truly didn't cut together, you know what I mean, and it's just like this isn't working. I don't know if we're making the same movie. That's one thing. To me, it's the stuff where you announce something and it doesn't even shoot. It doesn't even
make it to.
Don't announce it.
It can't get out of pre-production.
Just don't even announce it.
Yeah.
No one's gonna. It's like I think
Netflix. Sometimes they don't announce shit until like a week before it drops.
And it's smart. You know what I mean? It's just like once you've got the movie cut together and it's like, okay, this is gonna be great. Then you're like, we have a new Star Wars movie coming out. And you show a trailer. Everyone's like, holy shit, we got a new Star Wars movie? People will wait for a Star Wars movie.
Well, I think the thing is, like, they're trying to get the Star Wars side of Disney to mimic the Marvel side.
Yeah.
And Marvel, they announce shit all the time.
Yeah,
but
and I don't think those things are the same. I think that, like...
Oh, they're almost identical as far as production is concerned.
No, I don't think... I mean, from the way people are oriented towards them, I would
also say it's identical. There is as much fervor and enthusiasm.
It's not about fervor. It's the thing about Marvel is they're based on comic books, and there's a fuck ton of characters, and there's gazillions of miles of story that you can tell. And people, it's like when you go see a Marvel movie, you a lot of times the story. You've already read the comic books.
Sometimes, I mean, I thought that way before I saw Eternals, but it was something totally different than the comic I read.
It was a combo of two comics. I mean, supposedly from what I've heard about Eternals, it's a stuff from the second run and the first run, but I'm saying like stuff in the Avengers and stuff in it was from certain comic books and stuff like that, and it's not always exactly verbatim, but it's a long thing. Where Star Wars, there's a holy trinity of first three movies, and there's a second set of movies that came out much later that are maligned, but at the same time it's just the same thing.
That's also kind of disregarding an incredible wealth, and I know that they decanonized it, but they have an incredible wealth of extended universe books and comic books and all sorts of other things that they can also and at some points they have cherry-picked things from the decanonized work and brought it into the actual new canon.
I would agree, but the thing is,
so it's not like they don't have the resources to access.
Yeah, but so much about Star Wars and people's orientation to it and their love and all that kind of stuff is about the waiting for it, the idea that there was three movies and it was defining part of their childhoods, and they waited so long.
I feel like that's very generational.
And then it's like, we're going to make Star Wars movies every year. It's like generally you're going to erode some of the specialness of it by the very nature of the fact that as the supply goes up, the demand goes down. You know what I mean? And it's just not. When you start to do that, some people are like, I think we've just seen too much Star Wars. It's like, well, look at Marvel. People don't think there's too much Marvel. It's like, yeah, but people that really, really love Marvel are just like, yeah, it's this character, and this guy over here, and it's this guy over here. I love these guys.
People were saying there was too much Marvel. And I was one of those people saying,
I was one of those people.
Well, you just don't like Marvel.
Any Marvel is too much Marvel.
But I was saying that, before Endgame came out, And then after Endgame, it was like, oh, they did something completely different with this. Like, this was actually like an experience that, you know, I will probably never be mimicked in a movie theater ever again. It was like the most epic movie going experience I've ever had. You know, that was unexpected. Like, that was a thing, and it was like, oh, okay, so, you know, I was at first weary about this whole thing, but now I'm kind of interested to see how much more they can develop this out. So I feel like there was a little, and especially helped, you know, having a year off from Marvel due to the pandemic. That helped. But like, I think there is a lot of similarity in what both of these properties are and what they mean. It's like a generational difference between people who grew up watching Star Wars shit and people who grew up watching Marvel shit. Like, you know, it's just a generational thing.
They're gonna have to, if the idea is to release a ton, and The Mandalorian is kind of doing it, like, they're gonna have to change. My point is that the nature of what Star Wars is, I mean, they basically just cobbled together what Marvel is, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, for the last, like, 10 years. But the thing is, Star Wars goes back all the way to the 70s, and people are real protective about the way they felt about it. You know what I mean?
And that's kind of the thing, is like, and this is a part of the problem, I think, with, maybe this is the problem with Kathleen Kennedy, is that, you know, at a certain point, you have to force people to get over it. Like, and I think that The Last Jedi was an excellent opportunity in forcing people to get over it, right? Like, you know, the past is dead, etc. Bury it. And, you know, they got shook by the reaction to that. And, you know, they wavered. You know, they flinched. And they went back the wrong way with Rise of Skywalker. And I think that there is still an interest, because, you know, you can only dip from that well so much before it's like, okay, what are we talking about here? How many more stories can we cram into, like, the 3 or 4 year time span between, you know, Return of the Jedi and this happening and that happening? And, you know, eventually they're gonna have to, you know, do something different. And I don't know what all of this creative different stuff is about. And I get the sense that a lot of these people that they're bringing in for the express purposes of doing something different, try to do something different, are prevented from doing something different, and then leave.
Yes, yeah, I would like to know, because to me, it's like, what are the fucking plot points that are so toxic that they want to avoid, or they're like, no, let's not do that? Because it's like, bringing Palpatine back, they were cool with that.
They were cool with that.
You know
well, I mean, because that's what I'm talking about. Like, that movie was a reaction to the backlash from The Last Jedi. Like, they thought that they were ready to move past what Star Wars had been, and when that backlash hit, they were like, no, we have to make sure.
I honestly don't even think, like, from Kathleen Kennedy's standpoint and some of the executives at Lucasfilm, I don't even think it was like that purposeful. I think that, like, Rian Johnson was like, I want to say this, and they just said, go make your movie, and they said, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that'll be cool. It's Star Wars, and then I think they were legitimately quite surprised about the way people reacted.
For certain they were surprised. You know what I mean? I think they understood. I'm not going to say that they were as aloof as that with respects to what, you know, The Last Jedi was. I think that they recognized what it was as far as it being a potential agent for change, and I think that they were okay with it. I think that they recognized, correctly by the way, that the Star Wars brand could survive it. Whatever, and they know their fan base. They know how, you know, extremely enthusiastic.
It really survived it though But The Mandalorian is what I mean. The thing is after Rise of Skywalker, people were like, diminishing returns.
But I wasn't saying that the franchise survived in spite of it. What I was saying is that they believed at the time that, and obviously they believed it because they released the movie. They believed that whatever backlash they were going to get from the movie wasn't going to be detrimental to whatever future plan.
I thought they were going to get any backlash. I think they thought the movie was
I'm sure they thought they were going to get something. I don't think these people aren't that dense. They know they're good at their jobs. They're good at researching the market. They understand their fan base incredibly well. They hear from them constantly. Like they probably knew they were going to get something. They probably wouldn't have anticipated that they would have gotten it to the degree that they got it.
No, because they would have never put it out that way. They would have been like, well, let's work on this. If they thought that was going to do anything like it did to the fandom, you know, and be so controversial. They're not. The thing is they don't want, I mean, what you can say about the first movie was it wasn't an attempt to be controversial. It was an attempt to actually give original trilogy people, you know what I mean, something back after the prequels. Yeah. It's like, hey guys, we can still do this. We can do this, man.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. But that was the first movie though. That was Force Awakens.
Yeah,
and I think that and The Last Jedi was a reaction to that. It was like, okay,
yeah,
you gave them their.
They didn't have a plan. They should have let Lawrence Kasdan write all 3 movies.
Well, I mean, they were trying to mimic the first trilogy.
Yeah, and I think they were trying to mimic the way the first trilogy was made in an attempt to, you know, it's like if you're going to try and make something that's like something else, you know, instead of just like, well, let's copy it beat for beat, you try to create the same environment in which it was made. And the first trilogy generally was made on the fly, but George Lucas was in charge of the whole thing, you know what I mean? And he had
it was
some
his
things
vision,
he wanted
ultimately.
to do.
It was his vision.
And it was, you know, one guy weighing in that was creatively invested in a way that I don't think Kathleen Kennedy was creative invested. It wasn't, she didn't come up with Star Wars. She didn't, you know, she was more of a facilitator of a classic role.
And like if there was a criticism that I would levy towards that, it was that somebody, whether it was J.J. Abrams or Rian Johnson or whoever else, somebody should have been the George Lucas person, the creative vision, even if they weren't the director for all 3, like the creative vision for all 3, so that there is a connective tissue throughout the production process of all 3 movies.
I just think, I don't even know, I think now when they look back, they think, what the fuck are we thinking? Why wouldn't we just have a story? You know, a through story we were trying to tell. Like what? But I think they were just like on the thing where like, well, this is the way it was made. This is the way movies are made. We're making sequels here. We're doing our thing. You know, and they just like, this is the way movies have always been made. We don't need to have all the story figured out all the way through to the end. We'll figure it out as we go along. And, you know, that's kind of what the way they did the first movies, and it'll be fine. I mean, the prequels had all the story figured out from the beginning to the end, and look how that turned out.
Yeah.
You know, what they didn't realize is the whole generation of kids that fucking love the prequels were just blinking on the internet in between, like The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. You know, all of a sudden, all these people that had made up the YouTube base of a lot of the YouTube base of fandoms for The Force Awakens, you know what I mean, were majorly bummed out and have a huge love for the prequels, to the point where they don't even understand how much the prequels were hated when they came out. By older fans.
I just can't escape the feeling that what the Star Wars side, the Lucas side of Disney is trying to do is mirror the Marvel side. Because at the end of the day, Marvel puts out big budget movies. I mean, it's all dollars. It's the dollars. Like, how much does this movie cost? What's the size and scope of it? What's the development timeline? And how much does it make when it's released? And how can we
I think that's what they were trying to do. I think that's what they were trying to do when they started Force Awakens. We'll do these big trilogy, these kind of like legacy, you know what I mean, saga movies, and then we'll have a different character in between. So every year a new Star Wars movie will be in the, you know, and we'll just keep doing that.
It's not at all a coincidence that Disney's what was it? Was it their May the 4th thing or their Star Wars Day or whatever that is? When they announced all of those Star Wars shows, they announced Rogue Squadron, The Bad Batch, and
Investors Day.
Was that Investors Day? When they did that, it looked exactly like when they announced all of those Marvel movies. When they announced Hawkeye, when they announced...
It was announced the same. It was the same thing.
No, they were separate ones. Ones.
The thing I'm thinking about where they announced that, it was like the same presentation, but like Feige comes up, he does his Marvel thing. Kennedy comes up, she does her thing. The Pixar guy comes up, they do their thing. It was the Investors Day, so they just went through the docket. You know what I mean? That's why they all had the same look and the same feel and the same vibe. It was the same presentation.
Well, because they all do. And I feel like, and even with the Pixar stuff, especially, actually, and I mentioned this in the stream that I did with Movie Madness, and they were talking about Kevin Feige and his process and why Marvel can crank out these movies with the level of efficiency that they do. And a part of the reason why they do that is because they make a lot of those Marvel movies the same way Pixar makes movies. They blueprint out movies, like especially their big action beats, in 3D. They make 3D composites of the things they're going to shoot long before any set piece is built,
script is written,
or sometimes even that. Like they'll just have like, okay,
We know Iron Man's gonna fight Thanos, so we need to see what that's gonna look like.
We want what's Iron Man gonna look like when he flies? Like is it gonna look like the Rocketeer from the '90s, or how are we gonna portray Iron Man flying that looks cool and compelling? Well, let's have Jeff do some composites, and then they do a bunch of that, and I think
they do that in a lot of stuff. I mean, they do previses and things like that. Now they're doing it like even
the thing they do some of that. They did some of that stuff like in a limited capacity in earlier movies, but it was Marvel that really started doing that, like from start to finish. Once they did have their script, like let's actually plot this out so that we don't waste any time on production stuff, so that we really don't have to do reshoots or anything like that. Like we know what we're going to shoot long before we shoot it, and we get buy-in on how things are going to look, like how things are going to all that sort of stuff. So like, and that's right out of Pixar, like because you make a 3D. And I think it must have been you may have been talking about why Pixar movies are always so good is because, they're made in 3D, they have a chance to go back and reiterate over jokes and stuff.
And then the scripts, because it takes long to make them, the scripts are usually good. Because, they don't have the...
But it's also easier to reiterate on stuff that doesn't work.
You can see it doesn't work, and you're like, let's get it out of there. And it's just much easier to do. I mean, it's, think about shooting... Shooting's rough, man. You got you got a schedule you got to make. You got the actors for a certain amount of time. You got to build sets. I mean, it's like doing live action shit. But my point is that I agree that I think Star Wars initially wanted to replicate the Marvel thing of like new movie every year. But
I think it's not just that. I think they're trying to replicate the production style, and I think a lot of these hiccups come from that.
Well, I don't know, man.
These things are getting canceled before they even hit the set.
If you think they were replicating their production style, they would, more shit would get made. I don't know what the issue is. I don't know what the problem is. I'd be very interested because it just seems like,
Kathleen Kennedy, email us.
Yeah,
let us know.
I'd love to I would love to sit down with someone that like is just like, okay, I don't care about the NDA. I'm just gonna tell you what's going on. Here's the fucking deal.
You could do it where it's their shadow and they have the voice.
And just like, here's what's going on. I'm there every day. I get almost all the emails. This is what's fucking happening.
Yeah.
And they would just, they could just say, because it'd be very, very interesting. I mean, at the end of I don't really care so much. It's just like, the world seems to be all about this now. It's like in lieu of, and it's like, because we've got all these people and that their livelihood. I mean, there are guys that started YouTube channels when The Force Awakens that came out. They just started a YouTube channel because they like Star Wars, and now they've got like millions of subscribers, and they're they're on there talking to their these people. They got to have something to talk about. You know what I mean? And the thing is sometimes there's nothing going on. You know what I'm saying? It's like if you're going to talk about the books and shit, but it's like this is news. It's become entertainment news and stuff. I don't know if it serves any purpose. You know what I'm saying? I don't think any movies are better because of this shit. I don't think any I don't think any movie is actually, maybe you could argue that Sonic the Hedgehog is better because they fixed that fucking hedgehog after the shitty model when everyone freaked out about it. But it wasn't like we got a leak of the hedgehog. I mean, they fucking released a trailer and people were like, fuck that. And I'm like, oh, that wasn't real. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know. I gotta wonder, like, what the fuck is happening though, And I don't know, man. I was just thinking, like, maybe they shouldn't make any more Star Wars movies.
Well, that's not gonna happen.
Maybe they should just say, you know what, guys? You blew it.
I mean, honestly,
it's just... Off. We're not making any more movies.
We'll
make TV shows. Watch the TV shows.
And I was going to say, I don't think it's a coincidence that the most successful element of Star Wars right now comes from the Marvel brand. Because Jon Favreau, he's from the Marvel side of that thing. He was instrumental in Iron Man and everything post Iron Man, along with Kevin Feige. And he grabbed the Mandalorian, and he basically ran that shit like a Marvel movie. Like, and he talked about that. Like, and it's not all of this shit that we're talking about as being like the more successful side of Star Wars. It comes from that, by the Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett, and what's gonna come up eventually with Obi-Wan. Although I guess it's weird that there isn't a trailer for that. I hope nothing weird goes on there. But it seems like they're already, got most of that shot. But I mean, I don't think it's, and like Favreau's involvement, him and Filoni, like On a side note, they should just be the ones taking this shit over to begin overall.
I think too. I think the thing,
but also them bringing in Taika Waititi, like, it's not a coincidence that they're trying to dip into that well.
It's not. The stakes aren't the same, and the expectations for these generational events. It's like your average Marvel movie, especially when it got started. When you go to see Iron Man, it was cool.
It was just Iron Man.
Cool. It was just a fucking movie.
It was just Iron Man.
Star Wars is like fucking people camp out for fucking 2-3 weeks to see Star Wars. And the thing is that when you have a movie every fucking year, you start to rob it of that. Oh, well, I don't need to camp out. There'll be another one next year. You know what I mean?
Or it'll be streaming in a couple weeks or whatever.
Yeah, whatever it is. It's like it's not the same cultural event. So in what they were doing, they made a lot of mistakes. But one of the things was I think they misjudged what some of the appeal of Star Wars classically was to the different groups of people. You know what I mean? As movies. It wasn't just about the stories, and it was about the idea that it only came along once at a time. You had these two generations had their own Star Wars, and it was super important to them, and when they're willing to fight over it, and so that plays into the movies. But with the show, it's like, well, the stakes are a little smaller. We've got a lot more. We've got a lot less margin. We've got a lot more of a margin for error in this, so we can build these characters up. They're talking about doing a crossover event. So what we'll do is we'll fucking drop. We got the Mandalorian. We'll put some characters in that. We'll put Boba Fett in that, and Boba Fett gets his own show. Fennec Shand comes in. Boba Fett.
A lot of that just kind of and if I was gonna level a criticism on that plan, is that it kind of falls back on the thing about Star Wars that I dislike the most. And that is its crippling reliance on all of its older characters. Like, I loved that the Mandalorian was a new character. It was Din Djarin, and he was doing his own shit. And now it's going to be about Boba Fett again, and it's going to be Ahsoka Tao and Obi-Wan and all of that. What?
That's a Tana.
Oh, I don't. I knew it started with a T, so I got that much right. But it's going to be all that sort of stuff. And it's like, again, when we talked about Star Wars Visions, like, what I loved about that was it was just crazy, wild, way left field shit, like new stuff.
You're right, but at the same time, they're, if they're looking at the Marvel model, no one has a problem watching the new adventures of Thor. You know what I mean? Or Captain America. You know what I mean?
There's always new things being introduced. The Eternals are new. Fucking Shang-Chi is new. There's a lot of other things that, and they're about to start bringing in X-Men and Blade and all of that, and we're gonna see their takes on those
X-Men
characters.
Shows would you watch? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, you're talking to the wrong
person. That's my point,
person for that.
Is that you like the X-Men? You'll watch show after show after show with the X-Men. You know what I mean? Just in different adventures, doing cool stuff. You know what I mean? There's lots of people that feel that way about Boba Fett. They'll watch him do whatever.
For certain.
What I mean?
For certain.
And they're looking. And my point is my point to your original point is, if there's one thing they're looking at Marvel and saying, like, okay, they're like, well, maybe we can turn these characters into like franchise characters that we can have them team up. We can build them out from where they were in the movies. They're talking about, let's bring Lando back. You know what I mean? We'll give him his own show, and we'll create our own. Because the thing is there's not. If you look at the Star Wars comic books, if that's supposed to be any model, they're not really about new people. The comic books are about Luke, Han, Leia, Lando.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's all about the same guy, and that's like the thing. It's all about Luke, Han, Leia, and all those things. All those guys doing the exact same things.
Well, now they branch out. They got they got some different people. They got Dr. Aphra, that's a new character, and they got Boba Fett. Now they got War of the Bounty Hunters. They got some multiple Fetts involved. I think there's lots of they're
expanding the universe a little bit.
They're building out.
They're expanding the universe.
They're building out the characters they feel like, and Disney Plus is where they're doing that. I don't know what they're going to do with the movies, but I think that right now, Disney Plus affords them
some runway.
The margin for error that's required when they're trying to kind of figure out what does Star Wars look like when it's not a once in a generation event.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And they're not really sure. And they had a lot of success with the Mandalorian, but it's like Star Wars for the longest time. It's one of these things that was seen as it can't fail.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Solo was the first Star Wars film not to make just a metric fuck ton of money. It was the first Disney sold Star Wars film not to break $1 billion. You know what I mean? Every other film broke $1 billion right off the gate, with The Force Awakens being the biggest grossing movie in the history of America. Now, Avengers Endgame is in the full. It's not in the mall. Avatar,
yeah,
it's in the world.
Avatar.
They re-released it.
Yeah.
Endgame beat Avatar, and they re-released it because they like that in China. They don't like Star Wars in China. If they love Star Wars in China like they do Avatar, Star Wars is probably the biggest movie in the world. But it's in the U.S. It's ahead by a pretty decent margin. You know what I mean? People love Star Wars, but what does it look like when it's not that once in a generational event for a movie? And we don't really know, you know. And the thing is that like the level of micromanagement that's going in, it's like, well, we're gonna make a new Star Wars movie. It's got to be great, you know. So what are we gonna do? And they're just not. I think the thing is the reason to make Star Wars be cool, it's got to be wacky. You got to be willing to roll the dice a little bit. I mean, because the Star Wars is a gamble from the get-go. You know what I mean? It's like what made it so great was that George Lucas was like, yeah, it's going to be about the robots, and it's going to have 2001 special effects. And that's my next movie. People were just like, you're nuts. He showed it to all of his buddies. He showed it to and they were just like, this movie's terrible. You know what I mean? Supposedly Brian De Palma was like, dude, I have no idea what the fuck's going on. You're going to have to put something in the beginning just telling us what's happening. He's like, oh, okay. So they stuck a thing in there. And it's just one of those things. I think they're hard movies to make like that. And I mean, maybe they could wait. You know, they could wait like. I mean, they'll make something. They're not gonna wait. There'll be a Taika Waititi movie, and there'll be a couple other movies. But I mean, they could wait. You know, maybe 5 years.
I think they would be served. It would be in their
years.
interest for them to wait for a little while.
Oh, I agree.
And figure this thing out.
I think if they waited 10 years and they made a movie with Ray in it again, but like better, you know what I mean? Maybe like, you know.
Oh, well, it's got to be something in between that. Like, they were talking about John Boyega having that show, right?
He was going to get some show. That's
yeah. So they're still going to do some building out, like, in between.
And I've actually heard that she's coming back. Possibly be on that, to be on a show or to be on something. And Kathleen Kennedy will probably be long gone by then. But one thing I completely agree with you is that it seems to me they should just hand the whole fucking thing over to the fucking Favreau and
Filoni. Yeah,
you know, those guys seem to. I think they have the goodwill of the fans, which, you know, you can talk about whether it's fair or not that Kathleen Kennedy is so maligned and whether it's sexist or not, you know what I mean? And I think it's probably not that fair that she's so maligned, considering, you know, she is the one that paired Filoni up with Favreau.
With Favreau, yeah.
You know what I mean? And then she's, she's had some big successes.
I mean, and like, as far as the track record of those movies under her direction goes, really only one of them was bad. Yeah. You know?
Well, so only one of them, only Rise of Skywalker.
Only Rise of Skywalker was bad.
The rest of them were actually pretty cool. Yeah. And even though Solo, all of them made over $1 billion except for Solo, which made only $500 million.
So again, we're kind of debating this like in a very insular sort of Star Wars super nerd kind of climate. Well,
that's the thing, and that's why people get so incredulous, and like, you know, people have to explain like how could they possibly extend her contract another 3 years?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I don't know, man.
It's like, look at the numbers. Like, it's the same thing as the Bobby Kotick thing. It's like, look at the numbers as those things release.
The Mandalorian came out and blew everyone's fucking mind. You know what I mean?
I don't mean to compare her to Bobby Kotick. I'm sorry about that comparison. But, you know, I was making...
He wasn't comparing the people or their actions. He was comparing
their financial results.
That they were able to make financial results.
Yeah.
Bobby Kotick is a bad guy.
He's a really bad guy.
He's a bad guy.
He's a really bad guy.
Who needs to step down.
Yes.
He needs to be done.
Yeah.
I was going to say the final thing about Kathleen Kennedy is...
let me ask you. Do you think she should be removed from her position?
No.
Okay.
Not removed.
Do you think she should still hold her position then?
The thing is I'm going to say sure.
Okay.
Because the thing is, there's a lot more probably to all this stuff than we know or see. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it may not have been her. My issue is like, why do you guys, if I had one question for her, I was like, why on earth would you have Patty Jenkins on Investor Day getting into an X-Wing, talking about the movie she's going to make when you don't even have a script.
I forgot about that. She did.
You don't even know that you're going to make this movie for sure. You know, to me, it's like you do that when the movie's in the can and the editors are like, dude, it's the bomb. Then you shoot something like that and say, we're gonna blow your fucking mind. Like, I'll hand it to Robert Rodriguez. You know, they're done with the show, and he's like, I'm just gonna say this show is gonna blow your fucking mind. I don't want to oversell it, but I'm not sure it can be oversold. It's that fucking awesome. At least it's done. You know,
yeah.
He didn't say that, and then it just doesn't come out. You know, well, we hadn't even agreed on a script yet. So that would be my question to her. But the thing is that may have nothing to do with her. It might have been a deal where Bob Chapek or Bob Iger or whatever, like, we really need to have something with that Patty Jenkins project you guys are. And she's like, well, we haven't even got a fucking script. Maybe we. And he's like, well, you know what? Get a fucking camera crew and shoot her getting into an X-Wing. Just do something. Like, I want the investors to see something.
Like, she's a hot commodity. We want everyone to know that we're all about empowering women.
Yeah, it's like Wonder Woman 84 is going to be out in a couple of months. It's going to be a big hit.
Couple of weeks.
I want her in an X-Wing. You know, I want that.
Get her ass in an X-Wing.
You can't buy that kind of press. We have a deal. And she's like, what if the script breaks down? What if we don't? And he was like, I don't give a shit. You know, by then everyone's gonna forget it. No one's gonna remember what the fuck
like your
happened,
Bob Chapek voice.
You know what I mean? They're gonna remember Patty Jenkins in a fucking X-Wing. You know what I mean? And this is about stock numbers right now. Fucking do it. And she's like, okay, I guess I gotta do it. I'm not saying that's the way it went down. I'm saying
it's a possibility.
It could have gone down that way.
And it's a very likely possibility.
You know?
It's not an out of the realm of possibility.
People that are just like, what the fuck is she thinking? Don't have the whole picture. So I'm not gonna say she should step down. I would say I think that when she does, it will probably be good for Star Wars fandom because so many people have gotten their feather, fairly or unfairly. So many people have a bad vibe for her. They think like right now it's almost like
it's weird.
It's like they can't give Star Wars a true chance until she's gone. You know what I mean for them, and I think there's some of it is just. You know, their vibe. For some people, not all of them that are anti her. There's sexism involved. It's not maybe not the whole of it or the animating factor for everybody, because certainly there are major issues in the. I don't know how much it falls on her. You got to think some of it does.
Yeah, some of it falls on her.
I mean, John Campea says, well, it doesn't really matter who it falls on. She's in charge of the studio, so it all falls on her.
And I agree with that sentiment.
What I mean? And it's like the buck does stop there. You know, and so I think that probably it would be better for Star Wars as a franchise if she was gone. However, I'm not going to say she should be gone.
I'm going to
she should be fired. I'm not going to say that. I'm
going to say that, you know, it would probably be best. Like, she's good at doing what she does insofar as she gets films made generally, you know, on time whenever, you know, they agree on a script or whatnot. So, you know, I think she's good at that. She's pulling in the revenue. She's doing what a producer does. I think it would be better served if she maintained that role, but you know they did give this like the creative control over to a Favreau, Filoni, or whoever else, and let them be the face of this. Let them be the ones that take the arrows and shit from.
I just don't know why she would even want to do it at this point.
She's making money.
Yeah, dude, really?
Yeah.
How much money can you possibly spend? I mean,
do we gotta go back to Viking Island? Come on, man.
I mean, dude, but Kathleen Kennedy, I mean, if she was so inclined, she could spend every day of her life at Viking Island on the top tier. You know what I mean? And still die with millions of dollars.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just like, what, to me, it's just like, God damn. And I understand. Maybe she just really loves Star Wars.
Yeah, maybe she's just having fun in the process.
I love this shit, and I'm sorry that so many of the fans dislike me or think that I'm their enemy, but I'm really trying to give them the best movies and content I possibly can.
Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. If you liked what I said, what Justin said, if you like the content we're providing, if you had any kind of laughs at all, even if you hate us, if you hate my guts, if you want to stab me, if you want to say all sorts of horrible things to me, cool. Like the video, subscribe, you'll get fed all sorts of shit you'll probably hate, and if you like us, you'll get fed all sorts of shit you probably like. So, please and thank you.